Welcome to the Common Sense Show. I am back. And today I like to share a broad variety of interesting topics, expert lessons, expert advice. I like to give you something that I didn't have. The whole purpose of this podcast is to give you something I didn't have over 20 years ago when I started my journey in business and entrepreneurship, but also to give you my insights on things and takes that I have. One of the oldest marketing forms of modern day marketing is direct mail. Now, I know what you're thinking. What you're thinking already. You're thinking about Micah. It's 2025. Who even checks their mail? Don't they get mail in email, or don't they get paperless delivery of their statements? Does it even work? Am I barking up the wrong tree? I'm here to tell you that I have someone that is a direct mail expert. Yes, a direct mail expert in 2025. Travis Lee turned $500 into $18,000, a 3,500% increase in one of his campaigns. This guy knows direct mail in and out. And our conversation specifically is going to be about how you can do the same thing. Give me 3 seconds as I ping and bring Travis up to the stage. I said I wasn't going to say Tyler, but I did. His name is Travis. Travis, welcome to the Common Sense Show.
Hey, Micah, great to see you. Great to meet you. And thanks for the great introduction. I think hopefully we'll be able to kind of give a sneak into the past on direct mail marketing and how that works here in 2025 and beyond. So thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
I'm assuming that the thing that you get the most is, but Travis, it's 2025.
So we hear that a lot. It is not uncommon. And in fact, like any business that serves other businesses, we go out and we do trade shows and we're working rooms, right? So we're doing all the different things that we can do. And I know I'm in the wrong room when they say, well, I'm a web-based or an internet-based company. I can't use direct mail, right? And so it's really is a mind shift, right? My mentor, Dan Kennedy, always said that the internet is just a medium to deliver a product or a service, right? It's just another marketing medium. And so you should be using all the tools in your marketing medium, whether you're whether you're B2B, B2C, online, offline, brick and mortar, combination of all those things. So looking forward to chatting with you and hopefully showing some folks, imparting some wisdom that direct mail is not dead. You're right. It's been around forever, but it's still alive and well and kicking and making a lot of money for people who know how to use it.
You know what's funny is it seems obvious to me, fairly obvious, that a marketing company whose job it is to build websites for those who either need enhanced websites or websites, generally speaking, would not oppose the fact that it's 2025, therefore direct mail could be used, because it's like, how else are they going to know or learn about? I mean, I suppose they could Google you, but doesn't it? It seems kind of like it fits the whole here's what I do narrative, and why don't you come and get yourself a website, a nice piece of real estate on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny. So some of the largest direct mail some of the largest users of direct mail are what we would consider to be online only type of businesses, right? So you've got Google AdWords, which I don't think they call it AdWords anymore, but what the legacy brand of Google AdWords, Google Ads, they send out a ton of direct mail. And if Google AdWords works so well, why wouldn't they just use their own medium, right? So Amazon, I don't know if you're an Amazon Prime member or not, they've been mailing out catalogs now for about 3 or 4 years. So Amazon is now one of the largest direct mailers in the country now. So it's like I said, direct mail isn't the be all end all, and none of these medias are the be all end all, right? Online, it doesn't matter. It's how many tools do you have in your toolbox, and which tool do you need to implement at the right time, right? So if you've got a screw, a hammer is the worst possible tool, and vice versa, right? So it isn't about one being right and one being wrong. I mean, like I said, we go to We go to events, we do online, we do offline, we do direct mail. So it's just part of the toolbox that you have. And it's that other tool that, hey, this might be an appropriate tool to use right now. And I can get into some specifics if you want, but we're no longer living in a world where you can really just survive on one type of marketing media, right? Maybe back in the days you could put Yellow Pages ads and the world beat a path to your door. Not that way anymore.
Well, let's talk about the attitude that kind of is like where that came from, where it's, I don't believe we should do this anymore. I think we should shift over here. Now, I get it, right? So there's two schools of thought. The whole Wayne Gretzky thing, which is I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going, try to stay ahead of the curve, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the point that you're making is that, and this is an old school marketing strategies tactic, which is poles in the water, right? How many poles in the water should a business have to catch as many fish to feed a village, right? And the answer is as many poles as is necessary.
As are catching fish. Yep.
That's right. So is it wrong for people to say I'm skating where the puck is going and direct mail is not it? Or is it the poles in the water argument, or do you see it differently?
So honestly, I think it's a good mixture of both, right? So what I've always thought, what I've always been taught is that you should be doing any and all marketing that gives you a customer either at an immediate profit or profit over long term, right? And so every business is built differently, right? Some businesses, we have to be profitable on the front end because there's no back end, right? We got one time, so we have to be profitable at that time and at that point in time. An example, I work with a decent amount of bankruptcy attorneys, right? Hopefully their customers only go through bankruptcy one time, right? And there might be some stuff on the back end that they can do to maybe increase the value of that client. But by and large, they need to be profitable on the front end, right? I've always been in businesses where usually the money comes on the back end, right? So maybe we're even a little, we can be almost negative. And in some businesses, we've been negative on that first transaction. But there's usage and they come back, right? And there's repeat business. So whatever kind of business you're in, you should be doing all the marketing that you can do that produces that positive client, right? Now, some things might be a 10-to-1 ROI and just killing it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do the things that are maybe a 3-to-1 ROI just because we have the 10-to-1. What happens if the 10-to-1 ROI turns into 3-to-1 and we got rid of the 3-to-1, right? And now we only have that one thing left. So I am very much, all the marketing you can do in a positive way, in a positive outcome should be done. However, you do need to be looking towards those next things, right? And in direct mail, we're moving towards that. And we can talk about that if you want, but there's now things where you can do online with the offline together in what we call an omni-channel approach. So there should always have that eye looking forward. But if that pole's taking fish out, I'd be really reticent to take that pole out of the water.
Yeah, no, you're making good points. And I as an example, so I own, I'm running 3 companies. One of them is a construction company. And so construction companies are construction projects. The engagement is built on trust, typically, capability, of course, and professionalism, right? So the person has to have confidence and trust that you can do the job. Obviously, the professionalism, meaning the appearance that you are going to stand by your brand promise and what you're talking about. And then, of course, the capability, your actual ability to actually do the work successfully to 100%. And so, but however, those jobs are very local, right? And personal, because you're in a person's home or you're in their business, but more specifically if you're in residential construction, like a person's home. And as you know, people tend to cluster with their in group, right? So that means that the people that we're closely associated with, we get our referrals from. So our friends, our family, our neighbors, and people of the same type of demographic tend to pull together. They tend to live together.
Yep.
And so those referrals become more important as time goes on. I see that as the power of direct mail. Like, so for instance, like we'll do a project at, let's say, ABC Main Street. And then what we'll do is we'll take our direct mail and we will target the homes in the area of ABC Main Street. So
Yep.
it's not like an EDDM every door direct mail approach. It's more like a targeted, hey, just so you know, we just work with your neighbor here. And more likely than that, they probably drove by that house, right?
Yep.
And they
Saw
probably
the
knew
truck,
exactly
saw
where
the
house is.
signs. Yep. Knew you were there.
Knew we were there. They knew something was going on. Oh,
Yep.
I see what they did inside the house without going in the house and actually looking around. And we try to use it like a targeted approach. Like it's almost like a handshake, like one way to kind of handshake and kind of do that. But is that something, for instance, I always use myself as a test case because it's easier.
Yeah.
But like, is that one of the aspects of direct mail that you're encouraging now in 2025?
It's so funny that you mentioned that because right now, kind of one of our best case studies that we uncovered this summer, this spring, or this summer, this fall with a client, he does residential construction. So roofing, siding, windows, that kind of stuff, right? But what he really wants to do, like those jobs pay the bills, they're good. What he really wants are these big, like backyard expansions, right? Where they're putting up pergolas and outdoor kitchens and giant, $25,000 to $300,000 jobs, right? And and everywhere in between. But so they're going to these $1 million homes. They're in Western Pennsylvania, right? So this isn't like Los Angeles or LA or New York City. This is Western Pennsylvania, right? Very blue collar, very not a city you would consider to be the affluent part of the country anymore, right? Well, what he does is exactly what you described. Is he gets these wonderful outdoor jobs, the ones that really drive the margin and drive the profits of the company. And what he'll do is he'll get that new client, and then we'll drop a pin on the map and say, give me within, it depends, sometimes he's pretty rural. Sometimes we got to go out 5 miles. Sometimes we got to go out like 1 mile. But in this circle, give us all the people in this area who also own their home of a certain value, yada, yada, yada. And now we do that exact same thing. So we now mail drop all those people. To your point, they're going to flock together. They're going to be together. They're going to be at the same. They're going to be at the HOA meeting together. They're going to be at dinner together. They're going to be at each other's houses together. And we'll say, hi, I'm Sam. I'm from CNS Construction Group. You may have seen our trucks over at the Wilson family on 123 Main Street, right? And we plant that in their head. And now he's got it now where every time, if he mails anywhere between 300 and 600 homes, once he drops that pin, he's almost guaranteed to get 1 to 2 clients, which again, when you're doing 5 to 6 figure remodels, you don't need a whole lot of clients, right? Now, if we were to do, $99 septic tank inspections, all right, we would need more than 1 or 2, but that's the whole idea, right? Is we drop that pin, and to your point, we market to the same person, the birds of a feather idea. And we see that work in a lot of different businesses, not just construction. Really, if you're in the home, that's a viable idea. That's a viable strategy for most people who are working in a home environment.
Yeah. No, and that makes a lot of sense. And like I can tell you that we recently got a referral. Well, theoretically it was a referral, but not really. We got someone called us because we're in an exclusive neighborhood in Boston, and so we're in Boston. And it's a high end, Beacon Hill area. We did a fairly it wasn't complicated, but it was complex permitting, traffic management plans, just to do an exterior painting job there. We do drywall and painting. And so we got called by a neighbor who saw us doing work on the other house. I can only imagine that is one of the things that can turn into a wildfire, one neighbor, then the next and the next. So I definitely want to take advantage of the fact that we did the work there and try to get the neighbors on board. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's something that should be, I think that you kind of need to think about this in advance, right? Of doing a project, like how are you going to do it? And to the guy's point, like identifying the ideal project, right? He wants to climb the value ladder. So he wants like a big target, he wants a big job on a regular basis, which means that if you get these big jobs on a regular basis, then you take a lot fewer small jobs and you can cut your workload in half and triple or quadruple your money. Like, it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I mean, his
yeah.
traditional construction business is fairly commoditized, right? I mean,
Right.
it's windows, it's siding, it's roofing, it's fixing roofs, right? And so even if for just 1% of his clients, now it's more than that, but even if just 1% of his customers, move up to that other thing where there's way less competition, there's not as much price shopping. I mean, if you're going to put $150,000 backyard addition onto your house, are we going to quibble over $5,000 or $10,000? Most people aren't, right? And there's way less price shopping. They want new windows, they might get 3 quotes. They want a whole new backyard, they're probably not doing the 3 quote thing, right?
Yeah.
So
no, it's true. And I feel like oftentimes when you get those kind of closer, more refer jobs where you've already been in the neighborhood, you've done other work, people are less likely to want multiple quotes because they just know that you can do the job. Like, you shorten that sales cycle, the waiting period. Like, you kind of put yourself in a position of authority of homes in that area, rightly or wrongly. Other people can certainly do the job, but like, they just see your value proposition differently, that you can work on those homes where they don't necessarily believe everyone can. Once you demonstrate that ability, I mean, you become a go-to name in the area. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's what he's trying to do. He's really trying to position this particular client as that higher end, right? Is he going to go in? Is he going to go to the lower end homes? Sure. I mean, he wants his trucks out front of those $1 million homes. He wants those trucks, where they're there for 6 weeks and they're there every day and the neighbors see them and they see this thing grow in the backyard, right? And now it's that implied endorsement. Hey, if it's good enough for Bob, then it's probably good enough for me.
With the notable low close rate of direct mail, historically, how do you convince someone that their marketing dollars should go there today? If they only have a certain amount of marketing dollars, how do we get to the point where we're just like, okay, I'm going to spend some of my marketing dollars on direct mail?
Well, so I take them through a couple different exercises because there's no denying it. Direct mail is getting more expensive, and it's mostly not because of people, not because of us. In fact, what we do is come down in price, right? You used to have a big printer that takes up the whole house, takes up a whole office space. Now we have digital printers that take up like 1/3 the space. But postage rates continue to go up. And that's a real struggle for companies like me. It's a real struggle for the companies who use us, right? So the very first thing we almost always talk about is, and it kind of goes back to our first conversation, which is, what's the lifetime value of a client? What are they worth to you to get, right? And and then how many clients and customers do you need? So if I always use this example. There's a great Mexican place right up the street from me. I love it. I go there about once every other week. Great little restaurant, but they're serving $14, $16 lunch specials, right? So now for them to make direct mail work, they probably need to do the low cost stuff. They probably need to do, like you had mentioned, the EDDM. So probably just the 5 or 6 routes in this city. In my little town, there's, I think, 7,000 of us in our little town. There's probably 12 different carrier routes, which is what EDDM is. We can get into the weeds with that if you want later. But that's probably their only option, by and large, right? They can't afford to buy a list. They can't afford to send anything too extravagant. So they need that low cost, and they're hoping for the long term of that mail piece, right? In fact, I got it right here. Direct mail has an average shelf life of 17 days. So when it enters your house, it doesn't leave again for 17 days on average. So now that Mexican restaurant, they need to have that lowest price, that EDDM, that lowest delivery price to the most amount of people, right? And then hopefully that thing sticks around. That's why we use things like, the pizza place where I am. They always send little magnets in the mail because what happens? It goes up on the refrigerator, and now that 17-day shelf life might turn into 30 or 60 or 90 days, right? Now, on the flip side of that, I have some clients where they're not selling $15 lunch specials, right? They're selling $15,000 things, whatever it might be, coaching or consulting or software systems or whatever it might be. Well, now that person has a lot of different economics going on for their business. So now they can very likely spend more to get that client, right? As my mentor, Dan Kennedy, says, whoever can spend the most to get a client profitably is going to win. So if I'm selling that $15,000 software system and I'm willing to spend $2,000 to get a client, and my competitor's only willing to spend $200 to get a client, imagine how much more I can do with that $1,500 spread in our example here, right? So it really comes down to lifetime value of the client. What can we, reasonably expect in terms of a response rate? You never want to be in a position where you need like a 5% response rate, a 10%. If you crunch the numbers and you need 1 out of every 10 people to show up, you're probably not in a position to do direct mail. On the flip side of it, I have clients where, man, if we get 1 out of 100, 1 out of 200, 1 out of 1,000, right? My home builder, I mean, he's in the position where if he gets 1 out of every 500 to 1,000, he's ecstatic. Like that's a boondoggle for him, right? So it really depends on those things, right? Not every business has the economics set up to make direct mail work in a profitable way, right? Now, maybe over time they do. That Mexican restaurant, they convert me to a twice a month visitor. Okay, over 6 months, that might pay off. But if they need like money now, that's a tough sell, right?
That's a good distinction to make in terms of who should be doing direct mail. So maybe there is a a marketing strategy that is actually more effective for your company than direct mail. But I think you're right, especially if your revenue is based off of like substantially higher kind of value proposition, then it kind of makes sense for you to do that. Are you familiar with the Eric Ruth letters, like the icing on the cake strategy?
No, I'm not. Tell me about
2003.
No, tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah, so in the fitness industry, there was a marketing guru named Eric Ruth, and he had a direct mail strategy called icing on the cake. And what it was essentially like a 3-step letter sequence where you would send somebody essentially a letter, right? And it would be in like what we call now, right, sequencing. So there would be a picture of one of your clients, right? And then you introducing yourself in the neighborhood, saying something like, "Hey, my name is Travis. I just opened up a training studio the other day. I'd like to introduce you to Shelly," right? Shelly is one of our clients, and she lives right around the corner from you. Shelly came into us because she feels this way, this way, this way. She was feeling tired, sluggish, kids, whatever the case is. And she came to us because she thought we could help her. She's just staying on her journey. She's been with us for a couple months. She lost 15 pounds. And I would love for you to, to have the same feeling as Shelly. If you've ever thought about this, we're right down the street. Feel free to stop in anytime, right? So you would send that letter out with the picture of your client, and then it will go out. And then the next thing would be like, dear neighbor, like, we have 2 more people that popped in that I forgot to tell you about in the first letter, right? That I thought you might be interested in learning about. Then you share their social proof and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just in letter format, kind of raw, right? But like the whole point is to appeal to people with like empathy and social proof, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last one would be like, I just wanted to like send you one last note about this, blah, blah, blah. But I wonder if you like know whether like letter formats now convert better than direct mail, or if it matters, than like postcards, like design postcard, or does it matter nowadays?
Yeah, so first off, I've certainly heard that sequencing story before, right? That's a great one though. The whole idea, I first heard it again from Dan Kennedy, which was, hey, I sent you a letter, you didn't respond. Hey, I sent you a second letter, you didn't respond, and then a third letter, of course. So
I think Eric Ruth was a Dan Kennedy evangelist, actually. Yeah.
There's a lot of us running around that are preaching direct mail still that were acolytes of, and still are, of Dan Kennedy. But to answer your question, the format question, it really comes back to kind of our last question about, what are we asking the customer to do? The customer, the client, the prospect, right? Whoever we're targeting. Because great thing about direct mail, it can be cold prospecting. It could be like conversion prospecting, like, so, hey, we got a prospect. Now what do we do? To, hey, they bought peanut butter, but not jelly. How do we get them to buy jelly? Right. At its most simple core. But when you think about a customer journey, right? And I learned this from Ryan Dice, digital marketing team. He probably learned it from somebody else. But you got to picture your prospect, your client, whoever it might be, where they are is on this side of the river, and you and your solution is on this side of the river.
Right.
And depending on the complexity, depending on what I'm selling, how many stepping stones need to go in between my side and his side, right? So the restaurant, the Mexican restaurant we just spoke about, there's probably one stepping stone. Here's an offer, come in, right? And we probably don't need to warm them up. We probably don't need to put them into some big, long autoresponder sequence, right? And so what I like to tell people is the format is going to be dictated upon, where's that first step in the journey? Is it a lead gen, right? Do we get them to a webinar? Do we get them to request a book? Are we getting them to request a meeting? Are we getting them to buy on the spot, right? And so now, by and large, the format is going to dictate where they are in that journey and where that next stepping stone is, right? So again, Mexican restaurant place, hey, let's give them a 2-for-1 and have them come in. There's one stepping stone is all we need. Well, if we're selling at that, again, let's go to a $15,000 SaaS solution for enterprise teams, right? Whatever. We'll make it up as we go. Well, the first thing we probably want them to do is get on a webinar of some kind or get some information in their hand. Well, that probably can be done with a postcard or a sales letter. If we want them to come to an event for us to showcase that thing, well, now that little postcard probably isn't going to have enough oomph to do it, right? We probably need a sales letter with more social proof, with more story-driven stuff, right? Hey, let me introduce you to Tim. Tim struggled until he found our solution. Now the solution, Tim's happy, right? So we can take that same gym example you gave and almost push it into this SaaS example. But it really comes down to what's the appropriateness of the offer? What am I asking them to do? And so, I cannot sell a $15,000 SaaS system on a postcard.
Right.
I can't imagine it would work. Right. So what's the appropriateness? What are those stepping stones we're asking them to take? And which maybe we can get them. Maybe there's 5 stepping stones. Can we get them to skip to number 2 instead of going right to number 1? Those are kind of the discussions and thoughts you kind of got to have about, what's my offer and what's the next logical thing for this person to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, and honestly, if you're turning around a business, which is kind of my specialty, if you're in executive management, if you're, whatever it is, usually you kind of just want to eat one bite at a time, as opposed to trying to like do everything. You can't convert the person to your religion and get them baptized just with the postcard. I mean, it's like a nice idea, but you kind of have to bring them through. You kind of have to appeal to them, right? So when I think about how do you integrate modern technology, more modern marketing methods with the direct mail so that it can be even more effective. I know that obviously with the pandemic, one of the blessings for direct mail, in my opinion, during the pandemic was the fact that people of all age groups learn how to use QR codes. So QR codes became like they were something that was cool. Some people use them, some people didn't. Some people knew how to use them, some people didn't. Now, like everyone knows how to use them. In fact, if you remember during the Super Bowl, there was a commercial where it was just a QR code bouncing on the screen. How do you deploy QR codes on your direct mailing so that people scan it and email it?
Yeah, so great question. You are absolutely right. My parents are in their early 70s. They had no idea what a QR code was until the summer of 2020, right? so now my dad's scanning everything, right? So right. How do we employ them? So first off it's the ease of which we can get them from saying, so we're offline, right? So now that postcard, let's use our $15,000 SaaS example. We want them, now maybe this is where a postcard could work. We're going to send them maybe a little bit of an intrigue postcard, similar to that bouncing QR code at the Super Bowl, which I think was Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was one of the crypto companies. In any case, now we can say, okay, postcard, CEO, here's a QR code. here's a compelling headline, here's a compelling offer, here's a compelling reason why to scan. And now we only have this postcard. But on the internet, we've got this much room, right? We got infinite amount of time and space on the internet. So if we can use that QR code to drive them to a longer message online, that's one way we go about doing it, right? So there's kind of, can we use some intrigue like the Super Bowl ad, get them to scan where now we have no restrictions on time or length or place or, I guess there are restrictions on all those things, but compared to a little postcard, they're infinitely more time and space. Some of the other things that we do as well is just the immediacy of it, right? So we are seeing a lot more. So we've got ways to track this. We're still giving people options to call in. So I've got a client right now who's an attorney who does estate planning. And so we're targeting mostly affluent people, 55 plus, kind of getting near or getting into retirement age, right? And so we're targeting them. What we're seeing based on the numbers is almost at about a 3-to-1 ratio. The registrants for his event that he puts on are coming via the QR code and not the phone number. Now, pre-2020, my guess is we would have had 100% phone numbers call in based on one adoption. No one knew what they were, and two, the client base, right? I mean, 55 plus in 2020 didn't really use QR codes, right? And so we're seeing that there. We also have we have now access to personalized QR codes. So most people know static QR codes, right? I can go to any one of 1,000 free vendors, get a QR code and send them to my website. And I can get data on it, but I don't know if Micah scanned it. I don't know if Travis scanned it. I just know 7 people scanned it yesterday. With these personalized QR codes, we actually on the fly can print, as the name implies, a personalized QR code for that person. And now we can send out 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 direct mail pieces, all with their unique QR code. And the instant that thing is scanned, we know that it was on Bob's mail piece, or it was on Shelly's mail piece, or it was on Tina's mail piece, right? Now let's say, we're doing that in that environment, we're doing it to our customer list, right? So we've got their name, their address, their phone number, and we're trying to get them to buy a new product. Well, because they're an existing client, we get a ping that said Sam scanned his QR code. We can actually pick up the phone 10 minutes later and call Sam, right? So there's a lot of the way that we're doing technology now. So there was from about 2010 to about 2018 or so, there's about this decade with direct mail where there wasn't a lot of growth. There wasn't a lot of innovation. And now with the adoption of some of these QR codes, with the adoption of some other things, we're able to really integrate. Like we can take a mailing list and serve ads on the Meta platforms to the same exact mailing list we're mailing. So we got a list of 2,000 people we want to join our gym. We can now serve them a video ad with a message from the gym owner at the same time that direct mail piece shows up. So there's a lot of different fun and cool ways we're doing that.
That's awesome. Now, what about sending direct mail of things like keepsakes as opposed to just postcards? Is there effectiveness in doing that too?
So so our main business, are you talking about like sending like little boomerangs and stuff like that?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's where we actually grew this business, which is how we got the name 3D Mail. Is we made dimensional mail. So we would put things like boomerangs inside, right? Now we do everything through direct mail, everything from, cheap little index card postcards to we do big welcome packages for some clients who, when they buy, we send them out we fulfill their stuff essentially. Now there's a time and a place for these as well. The math still is the same as our last question, right? What's our lifetime value? How many people do we think we can convert? But like the one I like the most, and that's why I kind of grabbed this boomerang. So you have past old clients, right? Let's use a dentist because everyone knows a dentist and it's a real easy example. You go to the dentist every 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. If you hit month 7, well, now you're a lost patient. You should have been in last month and you didn't come in. Well, now we can send all of our inactive patients a little boomerang that says, hey, Micah, we want you back. You haven't been into Dr. Phil's office this month and you were supposed to be in and yada, right? And so now, you can do that. We have another client who does, we're just now getting started with him, but he works with startups mainly in Texas and mainly in the tech AI sector, right? So he can get a list of everyone who's in because this all needs to be filed with, I think, the SEC. Not that I'm an expert in this area, but he can get a list of everyone who is taking on money, who is asking for investor money before they, they call it the seed stage and the Series A stage. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but he gets that list, and now maybe we send them something like a little bank bag. So this is like a real vinyl bank bag. It's got a zipper. We put the letter inside. We put the postage and the mailing label right on the outside. And now when he shows up to these early stage startup CEOs, essentially, now they could have, the CEO could be him and nobody else, or some of them have staff. But now this thing shows up. I mean, you're going to have a 100% open rate at that point, right? And so that's what we want to do. We've got to get the mail open. That's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, that's smart. It's a smart way to do it. I think that, like anything, it all comes down to innovation. It comes down to creativity in your ads. And it comes down to, like, if you wouldn't open something or read something, why do you think somebody else would, right? Like, I think to your point about like the boomerang, obviously the boomerang comes back to you. We want you back. Like, it makes sense, like the money bag is actually ingenious to have that. I mean, in my opinion, like, you have to get creative. I heard of a marketing campaign years ago. A buddy of mine who did most of my marketing for my branding and design was telling me he was saying that there was a campaign that this company ran where they would literally create I think it was in New York, exact replicas of New York driver's license.
Yeah.
With the marketing message and the driver's license and the image.
Yeah.
And you know what they would do?
What was that?
Drop it on the ground.
So kind of guerrilla marketing meets direct response kind of.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, we've had, again, you talk about, what's the value? What can I had a client, New York City, his job. So he's an attorney. He actually works with the in-house attorney for big giant companies, right? Because they have a very specialized niche that they work in, right? And so what we would do is he would identify maybe 10 or 15 attorneys at a time so now he's going after the attorneys at Bank of America, the attorneys at big giant companies, but the in-house attorney there. And we would send him a baseball bat, and it would have the company's logo on it. So I'm talking like a big maple, major league size baseball bat, right? Not a little one, not a keychain, a baseball bat. And now we would put that letter in there. We would send it via FedEx. The letters inside that would say, hey, let us help you out. Let us help you hit it out of the park. And then they explained their specific niche that they would do within that law. And again, they're in a situation where, man, they could probably send out 500 bats. And if they get one person to say, hey, let's do some business, they're ecstatic because they're, 6, 7, 8 figure deals at that point, right?
Right. Yeah.
Money I can't even comprehend. Lawyers in New York who make a lot more money than I ever will see in my life.
Right, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're highlighting an important point here, which is that, your marketing, like, you have to, if you're a small business, you have to be creative with your marketing. You have to stay on top of what people like. If you have an ideal customer, you should know everything about you have to do the marketing analytics, right? You got to do the market analysis. You should know where your customers shop, what they like to buy, who they are, what appeals to them. And then that kind of informs your creativity. You don't just become like, we can create a cake and then do a direct mailing of a cake to everyone's house in the area. But what happens if it's an area where people don't eat cakes, right? Like,
exactly.
You should really know what's going on. That it's the analysis that informs the creativity. I don't think it's the other way around. So, Travis, how can people learn more about direct mail strategy from you? Obviously, you have a book that just came out. Yep. Where can they learn more about that?
So I've got my book. It's called The Simple 3-Step Process That Ensures Direct Mail Success. We talked about all three of them. We didn't necessarily enunciate them, but you got your list, you got your offer, and you got your media, what you said. That's your 3-legged stool. So this book, if you're kind of trying to figure out if direct mail works for you, if it's something you want to look at, it's my name, TravisALee.com, TRAVIS, middle initial ALEE.com. Pick up a copy of the book. I think it's $4. So you cover shipping and that's it. That's if you need that 30,000 foot view of direct mail. Hey, I'm just getting started. I don't even know what questions I need to ask. That's the book you need to get. And then there's just our main website, which is 3dmailresults.com. So the number 3, the letter D, mailresults.com. That's where you can see bank bags and boomerangs and kind of that more fun, creative stuff that we do. But just know that, like I said, we do everything under the sun. If it gets printed on paper and gets sent to the post office, we can help you with it. So those are the two places I would direct people if they want to kind of learn more about me and what I can do.
Awesome. And the links to those will be in the description of this podcast, both audio and video. And if you are watching this and we've been talking about QR codes, scan this QR code right here. And this is a link to sign up to my Small Business Mastery newsletter. Every week on Tuesday, I send out a newsletter that helps to guide you through the skills of running, growing, and building a business. You know, operating a successful business, 6, 7, or 8 figures, like Travis was talking about earlier, is a unique skill set. You probably have just gotten started or thinking about getting started, or maybe you're well established. No matter, you need to learn how to upskill yourself. And so my Small Business Mastery newsletter teaches you just that. It's free. Click there, sign up, get informed. And Travis's links will be in the description of the podcast. If you're watching this on replay crew, scan that if you're not already signed up, subscribe, and make sure you confirm the email so you can get it directly to your email inbox every single Tuesday. Travis, thank you so much for coming on the Common Sense Show. Talking direct mail. It's not dead. It's not outdated. We can still do it with some creativity, some focus, and some direction. For Travis, I'm Micah. We're out of here.